This is Raspberry Lemonade, the Arnold Palmer of podcasts, a refreshing dive into the stories of industry professionals, both sweet and sour. And now your host, Mr. Levi.
Welcome back to Raspberry Lemonade. We have a very, I dare say, legendary guest today. I know this guy's going to do some amazing things. He's already doing some amazing things. Go ahead and introduce yourself, man.
Well, I'm Gavin. I'm a 19-year-old director. I'm making my first feature-length movie, first movie in general. It's called Spider-Man Lotus. It's coming to YouTube on August 10th.
Yeah, just casually say, yeah, I'm making a Spider-Man film. It's whatever. Dude, I've talked to so many people who are, they're torn, let's be honest. They're a little torn. Some are super excited still. Some are kind of, commenting some negative stuff about it, and we'll get into that. But overall, as of today, how do you feel about the film itself?
I feel just honestly an overwhelming sense of pride in the cast and crew because, this has been 3.5 years in the making, and we've had crew members come and go. We've gone through so many different drafts of the script and then filming the movie, and it's just been such a long, difficult journey. But it's all been worth it in the end. I think I feel proud of everybody and also just of the movie itself. It's turned out to be everything I wanted it to be, and I'm so proud. I keep saying proud, but I really am. It's fulfilled my dream, and I can't wait for everybody to see it. And I never anticipated that it would become what it is today, and I'm just very grateful that I had the opportunity to do this, because not a lot of people get the chance to do something like this. So being able to do this, I have to keep reminding myself of how rare this is and how fortunate I am to have been given the opportunity to do this. It's just been crazy.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, I could only imagine. Yeah, I can't even say I can relate. There's no way I can relate to what you've, the whole process. You've been at this for, is it 3-4 years technically from moment of
about 3.5,
right?
Yeah, so probably about my junior year of high school.
Wow.
Yeah.
There you go. How old are you now, if you don't mind me asking?
19.
You're 19. Oh my gosh. Bro, you're still a kid.
Yeah, I am.
I'm almost a decade older than you. That's insane. Yeah.
Yeah, I shot the movie when I was 17. So I was the only minor on set. It was kind of a interesting dynamic because, again, I was the only minor. Everybody else was way older than me, but I was also in charge of the project. So it was kind of a weird dynamic on set because, people were like, we have to. It was just weird because I was in charge, but also just the youngest and least experienced. But that was interesting.
I bet. Do you have siblings?
Yeah, I have one younger brother, and he actually plays young Spider-Man in the movie. So they're flashbacks, and he wore the costume and did the stunts and everything like that.
That's pretty dope. And I ask only because trying to understand the whole dynamic, like you were saying, from spearheading this project and being in charge of that, directing it, and everyone else being older than you. I'm sure it's different from you being the older sibling and having a younger brother and kind of having that dynamic. So it's it's almost like the roles were reversed, right?
It was, yeah. And I tried to make sure there wasn't a massive power dynamic on set. I think there does need to be some sort of hierarchy, but I wanted to make sure my big goal was making sure the entire crew felt included and felt of equal importance. And I wasn't the greatest at doing that. There were times where it was difficult to manage, but I think throughout the process of the movie, I got a little bit better at, including everybody and making sure there was no power dynamic and making sure everybody was equally respected and every idea was taken into account. Because I've learned, some people, even if they're just a PA, they could have a phenomenal idea that could be better than your idea. And you have to swallow your pride and listen to what they have to say. Because a lot of the time it'll end up better. You can't just stick with your mean, you have your vision, but it should be flexible to include other perspectives because it'll lead to a better product. And I learned that throughout the movie. Like the stunt double, he'd have an idea. You know, I'd tell him something, but that's not a very good idea. I don't think that's going to work. I'm like, okay, what's your idea? He'll let me know, and then we'll rework it, and it ends up way better. So you have to really, really bring a sense of humility to it, because that way everybody feels respected. Everybody feels there's a good energy on set, and I think everybody can who worked on set can reflect on the movie and say, you know, it was a good time. All of us were very, very passionate, and there weren't a lot of problems. You know, if there were, it was handled very quickly by everybody, and everybody was very mature about it. But I'm very satisfied with how everything went, and I think everybody else can kind of relate to that.
All right. See, now I'm sorry, I'm just still stuck on the fact that you're 19, bro. Like, people are treating you like you're this experienced, like mature. I mean, you are mature for your age, I think, especially because you've done. But I'm thinking, I mean, how do I put this delicately? You don't expect the same thing from a 19-year-old than you do, say, a 30-year-old or a 40-year-old. Right. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I almost think, and we're going to get a little bit into the elephant in the room in a second.
Yeah.
I almost feel like it was almost unfair too. You know, everything that you've been through on a personal note at such a young age. Like, of course, and you've mentioned off air too that you do take accountability and you realize where you messed up. But I personally think, and I'm going to put this out there, hope I don't get canceled. I think it was a bit too harsh, honestly. But that's my personal opinion.
I think, I mean, it was difficult. You know, it goes without saying. Nobody's prepared to be on the receiving end of thousands of people judging your character off of, you know, fragments of your life. Right. You know, because
let's you know,
right.
Talk about the elephant in the room here. For those that don't know, what happened? What was the whole, you know, controversy?
Yeah.
The what do we call it? Yeah, I guess we could just call it that. The whole controversy around this film.
Yeah. So I remember it very vividly. Messages from the actor who plays Spider-Man from about 2017, 2018 were posted online of him, you know, using the N-word and stuff like that. I mean, actually, it was only that was released online, and it started to snowball very quickly. You know, the actor made his statement. He was homeschooled his whole life, lived in a bubble in Arkansas, and you know, I've known him personally, and I'm not going to try to speak on his behalf too much, but I can attest to the fact that, you know, he did grow up in a bubble, and I think his controversy comes from a place of ignorance, and I have watched him come into his own and develop his own opinions, his own perspectives. And of course, I'm not the guy to hold him accountable, you know, whatever, judge that, because it doesn't really involve me. But I have watched him change his perspectives and, again, come into his own. And so that happened. And then after all his stuff came out, he released a statement, everything. Everybody was releasing their statements. Some things came out about me as well. And they were also from the same time frame. We were involved in the same community. We didn't really interact much until, you know, later on, when we started making the movies, when we started to interact more. But we were in the same kind of comic book community bubble. And that community, there were a lot of older people in there that aren't the greatest, right? So I was kind of involved in that community. And so there were times where to fit in or to be involved with them, you know, I would kind of play into what they were doing. Just saying things that were, you know, offensive or stupid for the sake of like trying to look good to these people and impress them. And, you know, none of it was said with legitimacy. You know, they were said because I knew they would get a reaction from them, and I would kind of fit in better. And as I grew older, those became very far in my memory. I started to move on, started to distance from that community. 2020, I became very politically involved and started to involve myself in social issues a little bit more, understand that. So I grew further and further away from
all of that. So a lot of those things became buried. I didn't acknowledge them anymore. I just moved forward with my life. And so when those messages were released, they were very shocking because, again, I didn't look back. I moved forward. I didn't look on those or anything like that. So they came out and they were difficult to read. They were difficult to see because it took me a while to realize I did say some of these things. And there were nuances to it. There were times where I would throw my password around and some of those people in the community had my account and would say things, stuff like that. But
so some of it wasn't even you.
Right. And I remember, I had another admin on, I ran a Flash account, had an admin on there who would send messages with my account. I'd have to unsend it real quick. So, but there were messages that were me, and I take responsibility for that. And even, regardless of which was me or which wasn't, I know I was like that. I know I used to be I used to do that. So when those released, almost immediately, another account came along with, they were manufacturing screenshots, and you can tell they're not me because they're all lowercase. They're not how I type, and they were very clearly designed to look like modern day. So they would reference Lotus, or they'd reference something that's happening in current day to look like he just said these things. So they were merged with the real screenshots, and they were all muddled together. And so, I'm here thinking, well, if I say these are fake, it's going to look like I'm avoiding accountability. If I take accountability, it's going to insinuate I said these things when I didn't.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know how to navigate it. I wasn't prepared for this. I didn't know what to say. So I put together a really muddled and not very concise statement. And it was like, well, I said this, but it wasn't really me. And then I said that. I take responsibility for that, and just all over the place. And I didn't know how to go about it, and it didn't solve anything. It just got worse. And then a VFX artist that I talked about in a video I released called "Addressing Everything."
Yeah. Go ahead and watch that, by the way, if you haven't yet.
That kind of breaks things down a little bit more. But he wasn't entirely aggressive. He made sure to be a little bit nuanced in what he was saying. At the end of the day, me and him didn't work very well together. Again, like I said in the video, we just didn't connect.
Yeah.
And that's what happens sometimes. And so there was a disconnect, and he left the project. The problem was that he tried to speak for the entire VFX team.
I see.
When members from that team came out and said, this isn't true, we felt respected. We felt we had a good work environment.
Yeah.
So there were only 2 VFX artists 2 or 3, who didn't feel, they were all kind of in their own group, and we just weren't working together. And we parted ways. I had a final phone call with them, and we were very we were cordial to each other, and we had finality and closure, and we went our separate ways. And so I was disappointed when he took advantage of everything to push this forward when we did end on good terms. So the VFX artists made their own video. They have a segment at the end where they talk about me, they talk about that, and they kind of shut down all the claims. But that was another thing that got muddled. And people were saying I didn't pay my crew. They're saying I mistreated my crew, that everybody was, being screwed over, and just arguments and just rumors started flying around left and right. And it spiraled out of control. And because we're normal people, we don't have producers, we don't have PR agents, we don't have studios, it's only us combating this. We had no way to contain it. There was nobody we could go to. We couldn't do anything to contain what was happening. And so I couldn't I couldn't keep responding to this. I couldn't keep fighting this fire that wasn't going to go out. So I said my final word. I got off the internet for 2 months, and we started making that video. And we're like, hopefully this will clear things up. Put it in a concise way, but when I released that video, I mean, nobody watched it. You know, it got completely like ignored. And so, you know, throughout that time, I was like, okay, it's fine. You know, people, at least the truth is out there, and I said what I had to say. And then I started working on the movie again, started picking the pieces back up. And over the course of the year, started just focusing on the movie itself. You know, the internet, whatever people's reactions are, they can't be a priority for me. I just have to focus on the movie itself, the messages of the movie, themes, and hopefully they would resonate with people when the movie comes out. And then the other day, you know, I came back to Twitter, chaos. People said I didn't take accountability or apologize, and nobody had watched my video, so they just assumed I didn't address anything. And so I think no matter what I do, I think there's always going to be people not knowing the full story, which is unfortunate because I think it should be discussed with nuance, right? I think people kind of jump to talk about it with black and white, not the gray.
Right.
I'm okay with if people having a negative opinion on me. I'm encouraged. Like I encourage people having the ability to do that. But you know, I just wish it was talked about with nuance, and I wish the accountability remained what it should have with what was true, not with people turning it into a spectacle and an event.
Yeah. Allegations, rumors.
Yeah.
All that. Yeah.
And I try to remind people, you know, we're not Hollywood filmmakers. We are normal people. We made this because we are passionate. We don't have footing in the industry. We don't have any power really. And I try to just, because people assume I'm up in the, they assume I'm living the high life when I'm working at a grocery store.
I was going to ask you at some point in the interview, because one of the main questions I ask all the guests is, you know, who are you and what do you do for a living? So what does Gavin, and please give me the right pronunciation of your last name?
Konop.
Konop. Okay. What does Gavin Konop do for a living?
Yeah.
As of today?
I mean, I work at a grocery store by my house, and the only reason why I'm working there is to get money for the movie. So any money I make from Stater Brothers, I just take it and I put it in the movie, and I'm paying for a lot of it out of pocket now, which I'm completely okay with, you know, because to me it's like, I mean, this is like me buying a car or me buying a toy, you know, like I love this movie, and every time if I pay for new music, it's like, that fulfills my day.
Yeah.
You know, that's all I care about. So I'm okay with paying out of pocket. I don't mind it. But that's why I work at the grocery store, and I enjoy the job there. You know, I like customer service, and I like being out in the public and being able to keep interacting with people. Yeah, I work at a grocery store, and I go to college, and I don't have you know, I'm not a Hollywood guy, and I think people need to know that.
Yeah, maybe that's been the perception.
Right. I think there is a perception that I'm larger than life when I'm not. I'm just like everybody else. And we made a cool movie that people appreciate, and we just made something really cool. But that doesn't take away that. I mean, I think this goes for anyone with a platform. Like we're all normal people.
Yeah.
We're not set apart from anybody else. You know, yeah, I think people tend to think I'm bigger than I really am. I'm really not that special. I'm just like everybody else. And I try to keep that. I try to let people know that.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that's not to avoid accountability or anything like that, but it is to remind people of, you know, the production's not going to be handled spectacularly or phenomenally. There are going to be problems that we solve.
Yeah.
And they were solved maturely. Nothing got too bad, or nothing was a huge issue.
Which is really good. You know, and I think that's normal for even in Hollywood productions. You know, there's always when it comes to anything, really, if you want to get really broad, nothing ever goes to plan in anything, right? So I assume that's what happened here. And touching on kind of what you said, like you are just a regular human being at the end of the day. Tell us a little bit about your upbringing and how you feel. Well, let's start there. Tell us a little bit about your upbringing. Where were you born? Where'd you grow up? That kind of thing.
I was born in Rancho Cucamonga, California, raised there my entire life. I didn't travel or really leave Rancho. I mean, I'd gone to like Salt Lake City and I'd gone to different places in California, but really traveling, I went to Europe when I was about 16. I got to see another part of the world for the first time, and it was obviously very eye-opening, able to see other people's lifestyles, see that there's stuff beyond where I am. And that's where I really started to grow up. When I had that trip, got back home, I looked at things a little differently because your eyes are open to the wider world. But again, I didn't travel much. I didn't leave Rancho. So growing up, I grew up with divorced parents, and I think a lot of people go through that, and that's just something that me and my brother had to deal with, and that's just part of my upbringing. But Spider-Man was kind of what helped me get through that when I was younger, because I was about 5 years old. And so Spider-Man was what I turned to for comfort, to feel a little bit more safe. I was pretty socially awkward in elementary school. I didn't have a lot of friends.
Aren't we all though?
I played Spider-Man by myself on the playground, and I would fight an invisible Venom on the playground, and make my own little story. I'd reenact Spider-Man 3 on the playground every day.
Even the dance moves?
Yeah. Hopefully nobody can. Yeah, luckily nobody remembers that. But I would do that, and the Spider-Man 3 video game, actually, I reenacted more because I played through that game and every day.
I'd play, do a scene from the game during lunch. But again, Spider-Man is where I turned to, and I had friends, but I was pretty disconnected a lot of the time. And so Spider-Man again is where I went. And that occurred through most of my life. I was always turning to fiction for escape, and there were exceptions. Middle school, I started to be a little bit more social, a little bit more rebellious or whatever. But I always went to fiction, always. So that was my escape. And when I turned 16, or around the time I was 16, stuff started to get a little bit more difficult with academics and with friendships and trying to get a grip on, your brain's starting to change a lot at that time. And so you're becoming a lot more socially aware. You're becoming more, your opinions are becoming more nuanced on things, and it's not so simple. So I remember when things were getting difficult, I went back to fiction for escape, but it was different this time. I found that the fiction I was paying attention to was actually helping guide me through the problems.
Really? How
Yeah.
so?
I was reading a lot of Spider-Man comics during that time. I read the comics very, very frequently.
Some may say religiously.
A little bit religiously. But seeing the struggles of Peter Parker and how he endures through them and how he comes out the other end a better person, being able to watch my hero struggle and seeing him dragged through the mud, and find his way to the light by the end, I was finding that they were inspiring me to face my problems instead of run away from them like I'd been doing my whole life. Face them and try to work through them. And so I found that fiction was actually much more powerful than just an escape. It was actually able to provide a magnifying glass on our problems. So instead of taking you away from them, they can shine a spotlight on it and help you out a little bit. And I've come to find that I think the purpose of fiction from the beginning, or the purpose of storytelling, is to illustrate empathy, teach you a lesson, put you in the shoes of somebody else and see the world from their eyes. Even storytelling through cave paintings, they're cautionary tales of what not to do.
Real life application.
Right. So you take these stories that are fictional, and they're kind of they're just fictional stories, and you're taking real life attributes from them and you're applying them to your real life. And I found that when I looked back, Spider-Man was doing that all along for me. I was watching his media and reading his media, and they were unintentionally fueling my subconsciousness with the way I made decisions, with the way I navigated life. But I just became aware of it in my junior year of high school. And so when I learned that lesson, when I recontextualized how I viewed storytelling and saw the true power in it, and that it can help people, it can actually, it can be substantial to people and help them through their struggles. And so I felt like I found my purpose in a way. I felt like, okay, this is what I'm meant to do. Because I'd always been into storytelling. I always made little movies on my phone and stuff like that, and stop motions and iPhone videos. But this is where I found the purpose of it and the power of it. And so I went and I turned around and I wrote this script, The Kid Who Collects Spider-Man. It's 15-page short film. It sucks. I just read it the other day. It's terrible. But
Version 1 always sucks.
Yeah, it's honestly the worst thing I've ever read. I hope it never goes public. It's terrible. I'm trying to go for the emotional beats, but it lasts like one page. It's like rushed through. It's terrible. It's awful.
I want to kind of nudge in here, kind of touching back on the fact that this whole journey has taken 3.5 years to get to where we're at. Looking back to your upbringing, where do you think that determination, that stamina came from?
Of being able to push through the obstacles and not fall to it.
Yeah, even putting all like the negative stuff aside for a second,
Mm-hmm.
3.5 years to complete a goal is a pretty long time.
Yeah. I think throughout my life, my parents did have a lot of emphasis on academic success. And so throughout like elementary school, middle school, high school, school was actually very important to me. There were times where I would push it aside or whatever, but it was very important to me that my grades at the end of the day were good and they could impress my parents. So I don't know if that plays into my determination. Maybe that's not the right approach.
Or have you always had that, if there's something that's very important to you or you're very passionate about, like you're going to see it through no matter how long it takes?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know if I could pinpoint where it came from. I know that I've always, when I want something, I go for it. And I haven't honestly thought about where that might have come from. I thought maybe my dad is very determined and he's dedicated and he will get things done. He's good at fixing things, my dad. I think I might have gotten that from him because I think a lot of filmmaking is fixing problems. And so whenever there was an obstacle, times where I thought I would want to give up or want to, turn the other way, I would think, no, we need to fix it. We've got to find a solution for it. And so maybe that's innate to me. Maybe that's from my birth. Maybe I've always had that.
Now, have you ever had the opposite, where a lot of people, myself included, I'll speak for myself. I've had these grandiose ideas in the past, and I don't even take the first step because then I think I convince myself like, oh no, like it'll never work, or I don't have the skills, or I don't like. It's just like it's a cool idea, but nah, it's probably not gonna happen.
Yeah.
Have you ever had that at all?
I think there was a lot of times in probably middle school where I became really discouraged about doing this, because I had a perception that you had to be a Hollywood insider to do this. So
what changed then?
I think getting to high school and having access to the equipment that I did, having access to that and being motivated I was surrounded by people who had equal passion to me in my film class in high school. And that motivated me a lot. And I started to see like the equipment I had access to, it was high quality. We had really, really good cameras. We had good lighting. And I felt like, maybe you don't need to be in Hollywood to do this. Maybe you don't need to have $1 million budget to tell a good story. And as I learned more through high school and I started applying different skills and learning and trial by fire, and my film teacher, Mr. Cataldo, such an inspiration. And he gave me everything that I have. Not everything, but he gave me a lot of what I have. He gave us the freedom to just take his equipment that he's really majority self-funded, a lot of self-funding.
Wow.
He just gave us the ability to run free and do what we wanted with it. And he motivated me, he inspired me, he filled me with confidence. And I owe a lot to him. But because he gave me the freedom to just spread my wings and, you know, do what I wanted, I felt confident in starting this, because I thought, okay, if we don't crowdfund a lot of money, we've got this camera, we've got this sound, this lighting, I think we can make something acceptable. You know, it's not going to be
With what you got.
right. It can be taken seriously. And like the costume, me and the actor paid for out of pocket. We paid for that before the crowdfunding, before the announcement.
Are we able to disclose that amount? I'm very curious, because that's a dope suit.
It is, and they told me not to tell the amount, but
Okay.
it was a good amount. You know, we spent almost the entirety of COVID working up to get that money, and I would save every penny I got. You know, I shaved my head bald for $50 so I could have the money, and that was a terrible time in my life. But yeah, I was bald, like Lex Luthor bald to the skin.
Oh wow.
For a majority of 2020, and it was gross. I hate looking back at that. But like he was working 9 to 5. He was working at a restaurant, busting tables, and man, Warden has helped so much. I wouldn't have been able to do it without him. You know, he was so committed to the project. Again, the suit, he probably paid the greater portion of the suit because he was working more than me. I was doing like freelance video jobs, and I was like doing yard work for people, but there weren't a lot of places hiring for a 9 to 5.
Yeah,
so,
especially during COVID, right?
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
So I was just doing like freelance work for anybody. So I wasn't able to make as much as him, but I still, you know, we both shared the amount to some extent. And we got the costume so we could show people that we're wanting a professional looking movie.
Mm-hmm.
We're wanting something that can be taken seriously and isn't, you know, filmed in a backyard. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but we were wanting to give people the faith that, you know, this could be taken seriously. This could be like a
Good
to some
production
extent.
quality.
right, good production quality. And so the suit, because we knew it would be such high quality, with those costume designers I can't believe it's 2 people and they're
That's
doing all this.
crazy.
And you know, Lorenzo and Alessio, the Amazing Spider Lab LDS 3D.
Shout out. They're based out in Italy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're coming to the premiere too.
Oh heck yeah.
Yeah. So they're just the movie. There are a lot of people where the movie wouldn't be what it is without this person or this person, but them, they made the movie like that was the beginning of the production quality. And their suit, I mean, it's my favorite Spider-Man suit of all time. You know, I mean, of course, because it's
Maybe a
It's
little
what I-
biased there.
a little bit
but-
biased because it's what I wanted to see. You know, like we
Right.
all worked together on very specific details, the logo, the eyes, the texture, the web pattern. So it's like, it's what I wanted to see, and they perfectly translated it. So it would be my favorite. But they were so incredible. And so again, we had the suit, we had the camera, we had like everything we needed to make a film.
Yeah.
That's why it was a short film at first. But when we announced it, like it blew up. You know, I had a marketing plan. You know, I was like, okay, we'll see. I'd never marketed something before. I was like, this should work. Theoretically, it should work. But I was flying blind. It was a very detailed plan. You know, it was well put together, but I had no clue whether it was going to work or not. And it did. You know, we ended up getting, the goal was 20,000. And again, I remember the night before we opened the crowdfunding, me and Warden, we were like, maybe we should lower it. I don't think we're going to reach that. Like, maybe we could put
It's
it
too
10K,
much money.
15K, like, you know, but we were like, no, let's just go through with it. Whatever we get, we'll use. You know, if it's 1,000, we'll use that. Like, we're going to make it no matter what. And then we hit 26,000 by the time the crowdfunding closed. And we're like, I mean, I remember the final day, I was like, okay, it's closing. And we went from 20K to like 26K in like a day because people were like waiting to donate. And then on the last day, it was like, it's soared.
Deadline, yeah.
So then we had like a, what was it called? in demand where people could donate after the
Okay.
funding closed. So they couldn't get the perks, but they could I think they couldn't get the perks, or they could only get the perks. They couldn't donate a specific amount. So we just kept that open because we figured, well, now that the budgets became so big, we can film in New York. We can, we can hire out of state. We can travel. We can get higher quality sound people, get higher quality lenses, stuff like that. And the script was being worked on through the funding process. So there was always a big version of the movie where there were things we wanted to do. We wouldn't be able to do it with the budget we had. So we had a plan of, well, this is the version of the movie with nothing, but it works. It's got the emotional core. It's a story.
It's
we're good.
solid. Yeah.
Right. But as the funding was increased, we were able to put things in that we always wanted to. So it's not like we changed the movie for the sake of the funding, but the funding allowed us to change the script to work how we wanted.
Now, quick question on that. I know at some point, I won't say the name of the villain in case anyone, this is the first time they're hearing about this, but one of the main villains, you had originally said that they weren't going to be part of the film.
Mm-hmm.
Was the budget part of the reason why?
Yeah. I remember.
I see.
I remember before we started filming, I think we went into principal photography with $30,000, I believe. And by that point, we had a budget sheet worked out and everything. And I was like, you know what? I think I had met with a writer who I can't say I signed where I can't say the name of, but they
NDA people.
Yeah, exactly. I can't say the name. It's one of my favorite Spider-Man writers. People can put it together. But I spoke with them and they reviewed the script, and they had an idea for an element of the script that I hadn't thought about. And so it wasn't particularly that idea, but it took me in a certain direction with the movie to where, me and Warden, we were brainstorming and we're on this kind of track. And I'm thinking, well, the Green Goblin he's pretty important to this story. I'll just say the Green Goblin. I mean, he's in the trailer.
Spoiler alert. Yeah, just kidding.
He's in the trailer,
he's in the trailer now.
But I'm like, the Green Goblin, he's integral to this story. I think our budget can allow for us to do this now. And I remember saying it to him on the phone. He's like, Gavin, no. And I'm like, come on, maybe. And I'm starting to build it up. He's like, no, I don't know. And then eventually let's just do it. And he's like, okay. So we settled on it. And we were like, okay, so now that we have this idea, we're going to do action with him. We're going to add these pieces that we wanted to include. Let's split production up. Principal photography for the bulk of the story, the emotional sequences, the core of it. So this is the movie. Let's do additional photography for action, Spider-Man stuff, the more difficult aspects. We split production. So principal photography is the majority. That was Mary Jane, Harry, the Tim Harrison, the majority. And we filmed all that in 2 weeks in New York, about a month and a half in Arkansas. The interiors were in Arkansas, some exteriors in Arkansas too, but mostly the exteriors were New York. Which it was awesome to be able to be in Spider-Man's home and actually really shoot there. And there's a lot of guerrilla shooting. It was a lot of fun. We'd walk into Times Square and honestly, people were moving out of the way for us.
That's fun. It's no, we need you. We need extras.
Yeah. But I remember we were with the Harry Osborn actor and we're in Times Square and we had the camera and, Tristan, cinematographer, he's walking backwards, tracking him, and people were scooting over for him. And there were times where people would look at the camera, but a lot of the time, they would actually acknowledge, okay, let's look away. Let's act like we're part of the scene here.
Yeah.
And that was really cool to see New Yorkers, actually they're participating in the background, even though we didn't even talk to them or anything.
They didn't even know it was Spider-Man, but that's very fitting. I think.
Didn't. We had a code name on the board. It was called Dandelion. So nobody knew it was Spider-Man related. Somebody actually came down though in Times Square. They drove from some other state and they came to Times Square to meet us and they're like, oh my gosh, you guys are filming. We took a picture with them, which was super, super cool. But yeah, we filmed in all these locations in New York. There's a Harry Osborn sequence where we were literally just okay, let's get every key part of New York and have them walk through it and get these really cool visuals. That's a sequence in the movie that, it's Harry Osborn kind of aimlessly wandering through New York. Because he's going through it too. Everybody's going through it in this movie.
Cool.
But yeah, we got to do that. That was cool. And then we shot in Arkansas and majority of the movie was done, and then I needed time to prepare for the action. I never shot action before. I had an idea of what I wanted to do, never done it. So the stunt guy, Alex, he played Spider-Man stunt double. He got a stunt team together. We coordinated the choreography, and he did like some previs with his stunt team and where he lived. I think he lives in Utah. So they did some previs and sent it to me, and we approved it and everything. And so we didn't shoot additional photography until early 2022. So summer 2021 was principal, and then I spent time editing that and also working towards additional, marketing. We dropped the trailer, got additional funds for additional photography, and then we went into additional. And that was very smooth. I took all the lessons I learned from principal, any mistakes I made, any missteps, I took it into additional, and it was so smooth. The shoots were quick. Everybody was on top of it. It was the most fun I've ever had shooting anything. So we shot the Green Goblin, all the action, Spider-Man's flipping around, and it was so cool. It was like I felt like I was a kid in a candy shop, like seeing all this stuff. It was so cool. And that went very, very well. And then after that, like the majority of the movie was done. From there on, we shot, we did some reshoots, and we did some little pickup shots, but the movie was pretty much done at that point. And like even just recently, I reworked a part of the movie that I wasn't very happy with in regards to Spider-Man's origin. I wanted to take that a different direction. I didn't like where we had it, so I rewrote and reshot that entire thing with some people from Mr. Cataldo, my film teacher's his class, students from there. They're very talented. They're awesome. This guy named Justin Deanda, he shot it with a red Komodo, and his cinematography he's going places, man. He is insane. But working with him was awesome. Like I'd tell him a complicated shot, and he'd be like, "Oh, okay," and like he'd just get it. Like
You
it'd
just
be so
knock it out.
yeah. And like there was no arguments or anything. It was like we just went and we got it, and everybody was like really involved. It was so fun. That was another highlight of filming. I loved that.
All right, Gavin, what do you say we get into now the sour story on this podcast that we all like to hear? What would you say has been that sour story for you? Like not so great experience. We already talked about kind of like the obvious at the beginning of the show, but maybe on a more personal level, or what is that story that you want to share?
Honestly, I mean, making Lotus was so fun, but I remember my heart dropping more than it ever has before. And it was after principal photography, in between principal and additional photography. I'm in my room editing the movie, and at this point, I only had one drive storing all the footage in the movie, so I didn't have it backed up yet, really. This is the only drive.
Don't tell me you had a Toy Story 2 situation. You know that story?
Oh gosh, man. I almost.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm editing, and a friend of mine was in my room, and we're just chilling, hanging out, and I'm working, and they knocked over the drive from the table, and the cord, like not on purpose, on accident, bumped into it, shook the table, and this is a very like weak table. It fell off the desk, the cords ripped out of the computer, and it slammed onto the floor, and we froze, and we look at each other, and my heart was like, I can't describe to you how I felt, and I'm thinking, it's over. We're done. It just got destroyed because like the cords, I'm telling you, they yanked out of the computer.
Wow.
I heard it like, poof. And I'm staring at them, and I got the drive and I put it back on the table, and I plugged in the computer, and I'm sweating bullets, dude. I'm like, everything we filmed is gone, and I plug it in, everything's okay. It was all safe, and I immediately got my stuff, went to Best Buy, bought 3 new drives, and backed it up on all 3 of them. And I've been so careful since that moment, dude. Like that was actually traumatic.
Oh man.
That's one thing that happened. But there was another sour story I had where this was actually during filming, and I've talked about this before. We were in Central Park, and so initially we were supposed to film this scene during the daytime. So there'd be a daytime scene, we'd be good. But we had to push it. The makeup was taking a while. The actors were preparing. And so it was like midnight, and we went to Central Park. Not a great idea,
At midnight?
At midnight, we're in New York City. we go into
What could
Central
go
Park.
wrong?
Yeah, what
Right?
could go
Yeah.
wrong, right? Like stupid. So we were filming, and we were in a tunnel in the middle of Central Park, like actually in the middle of it, like middle of nowhere. So we're filming the scene, and these guys walked by, and the girls were at the end of the tunnel, and they started catcalling and like making weird noises and
wow.
everything. So they're saying weird stuff to the girls, and Tristan, the cinematographer, he immediately puts his camera down, like sets it down and like charges over to them. He's yelling at them. He's like, "What do you guys want? Like, get out of here. Don't talk to them that way." And the actor warden like walked up, and they were both like pumping their chests up. And I'm like, "Guys, like, let's calm down." And, like the girls were taken to the end of the tunnel, and they're like yelling and starting a problem. And we're like, Tristan, back off, back. Like, let's chill. Like, let's just go back. Like, it's fine. So okay. And the guys walked away. Everything was fine. We made sure the girls were okay. They were okay. And we asked Tuan if she was okay with continuing filming, and she was okay to go. Okay. So we're filming again. And I remember we look over, and there's those people are coming back around, and a huge group of people with them, like 10 people alongside them. And we're like, oh, damn. We're thinking they got their like group of people to come like attack us. And at the time, there was another Spider-Man fan film actually filming at another part of Central Park that we like talked to and we were with.
Huh.
And so they saw these guys walking over, and they came to us. They came to help us. And so we're like these two big groups.
Two gangs.
Yeah. And the guys like walk over, and I don't think anybody was thinking, but Tristan and some other people like walked up to them, and they were like pressing them, and they're like, "You want to fight? Like, what's going to go on? What's going on?" And the dude, like the other dude, like he picked up a chair and he slammed it on the ground, and
Oh, damn.
we're like, "Holy crap, what's going on?" Jacob stayed behind and like took the girls to the other end of the tunnel, and we're like, "Dude, like this is crazy." Like it was a big group of people, but then we found out this group of people that was with these people, they weren't even with them. Like they kept walking. Like they're just a separate group that happened to be with them. And so it was really only like 3 people. And we're like, oh, damn. And like the conflict's rising, the tension's going up, and Jacob came in. He's like, hey. Jacob was like the mediator. He's like, everybody calm down. Like, let's be cool. Like the dude was like a little bit drunk, so he wasn't acting fully rationally. And everybody calm down here. Let's drop it. Like let's calm down. So they made amends with each other, and everybody's like pretty shaken up because it could have gotten. I mean, I'm thinking like,
Yeah, you're
New
thinking
York,
worst case scenario.
yeah,
there,
dude.
yeah.
Like what are they like? What could happen? And so, luckily though, like everybody made peace. It was cool, but we halted filming after that. We're like, okay, we're done. That was too much.
Yeah.
So we went home and we cut the scene short. And then everybody, I think it turned into from a sour to maybe a sweet story because everybody after that, like you really saw how the crew cared for each other. We were all like very close and hugging each other and making sure we were all okay. And, that crew was very, 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 connected with one another, and we all watched out for each other. So, and also like the other fan film, like they were helping us out too. They're called, Spidey NYC. It's a friend of mine named Xavier. Like we're really good friends now. He's coming to the premiere. But they came in clutch. Like they were helping us out and made sure they were also part of like calming everybody down. They're like, okay, let's keep, the tension's high. Let's not do that. But yeah, it turned into a good story by the end, and like everybody got closer from that. And, we were more cautious from there forward, don't film in the middle of New York at 12 a.m. maybe, just think about that.
Next time you know.
But, yeah,
All right.
that was like the biggest hindrance to filming that happening, but it was taken care of. It luckily didn't get worse than what it could have been.
You could laugh about it now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
At the time I couldn't, but now it's like we can chill.
Yeah. Good stories, good times. All right. What about now the opposite side of the coin? What's been a very sweet story during this whole process for you that you're like, wow, like just maybe a feeling that hasn't been, that you could compare to since then?
There are a couple that I can note. I think the most important one to talk about is when we were in New York, and I think this was the first time that the cast was all together and we were going to film something. So we had Warden, Sean, Tuin, and Mariah. So we had the main four. We were all, there's a scene in the movie where they're all recording very candid videos of each other, like real college students. So they're shot on iPhone videos. And I remember telling them, you know, you can improvise this, like record, act like you're all friends in college. Like we were on the Brooklyn Bridge. And I gave them the leeway to improvise and just like act, you know, do this, like be the characters, embody them, act casual, make something memorable. So we gave them the iPhone and they all went on the bridge. I watched them from afar. Me and the crew were staying back and they were walking up on the bridge all alone, just the four of them, no direction, no sound, just them. And we're watching them and they came back and they showed me the video and all four of us were like crowded over it. And I started just like full on crying because I'm like, dude, these are the characters from the comic books that I grew up with. Like they embody them. Like this is what I've been waiting for. And like the video is so magical and it's in the movie and it makes me cry every time I watch it. Because like even in the context of the movie, like Gwen is dead by this point and he's looking back on these memories with her. And they did such a good job of like really, really looking like just normal college students having a good time hanging out in New York. And so I started crying and we're looking up at the actors and they all saw me tearing up and we all went into like a big group hug and we were all crying because we're like, we are doing this movie. Like this is really happening. But that was it was so magical. There were so many moments from the movie that felt truly magical. But that moment in particular was like, this is happening. We're really doing this. But that was, I will never forget that. Another moment was actually recently, the other day. I'd been, you know, it's been a tough year and we finally were ready to release the announcement video. And, you know, that video, I don't know if you watched it, it's me playing with kids' toys as a kid. And like, that's personal to me. And, you know, I knew it was emotionally, like I got emotional editing it, but when it actually premiered for thousands of people, like there was a lot of viewers on it when it premiered and I watched it live in my car. And as the videos came on, I don't know what happened this time, but every memory from that video was like hitting me. And I vividly remembered being in each moment and filming it. And I remember like when it got to the BTS of the cast and crew, I remembered being there for each and every moment and how I felt in that moment. And it hit so particular and it was piling up on itself. And I was so overwhelmed. My whole body was numb. I couldn't feel anything. I was sobbing. You know, I'm hyperventilating. I'm like, oh my God, like I'd never cried like that before. But I was like, this has been in the making for so long and now it's finally here. And I couldn't even like, I couldn't see. My eyes were so watered up and they're streaming down my face. Wow. And I remember like the video ended and I was full on like whimpering. I was like, oh my God. And I had to like get out of my car and walk around and like catch my breath because it was so overwhelming to watch and to finally put it out there after so long. And I called the producer, Jacob, and I called Warden. I was like, dude, we really did it. Like, we're really here at the end. And it was a bittersweet feeling because we are at the end. But I don't know if I'm ready to let go of this movie that has been part of me every day for the past 3.5 years. You know, it's been every day I think about it. And every day I think what I'm going to do at the end of the day. And when I get home from work, what I'm going to edit and what I'm going to work on. And there's a month from now, there's going to be a point where the movie's done and there's no more to do and it's over. And I'm going to have to live my life not thinking about it anymore. What I'm going to do now, it's over. And, so it was a whole range of emotions of knowing I have to leave this behind now. I'm ready to leave my childhood behind. You know, I'm stepping into my 20s now and this movie was, it's like the closing of the book on this first quarter of my life. And that was a very bittersweet feeling. And
Would you say you're a nostalgic person?
Very much. Nostalgia hits me. This game called Little Big Planet that I played growing up, very nostalgic for me. That built my storytelling because it gives you the option to make movies on there and everything. And that game, every time I open it and I see what I made on there as a little kid, you know, it really hits me every time. I'm like, this is where it all started.
Yeah.
And I think about where I am now, and I think about hopefully I made that kid proud where I am now. hopefully I've achieved what he wanted to achieve, and I feel like I have. But it brings me a lot of peace to know like I've done what I set out to do, and I'm proud of it. And so it's just a whole range. And I know at the premiere, I mean, I can't even predict what I'm going to feel. I mean, I'm probably going to cry on stage. I wouldn't be surprised, but you know, it's very close to my heart, and I'm excited to share it with everyone. I hope it connects with them the same way that it does with me, and it always will connect with me. And I'm always going to look back on this fondly, and I'm never going to forget it. It's really the pinnacle of everything my life has built to.
Absolutely. And I think this is just the beginning for you.
Yeah.
You know, the fact that you've acquired what seems like a decade of experience already, you know,
That's what it
in
feels
such
like.
a short time.
Yeah, it's.
I mean, I'm sure it's only going to help you and propel you even further.
I hope so. You know, I'm optimistic in knowing that there's so much to do. I'm only 20. I'm not 20. I'm going to be 20, and there's a lot of life to live. You know, but there's a lot to do. I feel like my purpose is not even close to being done, fulfilled. Like I've got a lot more. I know for a fact that I've got a lot more to do, and so that's going to motivate me for the rest of my life. I'll be 80 years old in a wheelchair, you know, directing my movies from, you know, maybe from a medical bed. I'm like directing still, but I know I'm going to do this the rest of my life. I never want to give up. I never want to quit. This is what I'm here to do.
Yeah.
And nothing's going to deter me from that.
Wonderful, man. Last question of the podcast. We'd like to end the podcast on a high note, a musical high note. So if you had to choose your current life soundtrack, what song would that be?
So I kind of have two answers to that, because I've been listening to the Lotus score a lot lately because I love movie scores. Like I'm huge on them.
We can geek out off camera later.
Yeah. There's a track that was done by Gladius James, one of the composers, called Run Towards Living from Lotus, and it's a 3-minute track. And then this one's a little weird, but it's a Rihanna song called Disturbia. I've been listening to that over and over again, dude. I don't know what, like, I love that song. I think it's because like my mom always played it in the car growing up, and it like stuck in my head. Yeah, dude, I freaking love that. I don't know what it is, but like in my car, I'll just have it on loop like for like an hour drive over and over again. I'm like, let's fucking go. This is sick. But I don't know why, but that is currently my life song. A little bit strange, but yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
No, it's definitely, I could see that being like a pump up type of song.
Yeah.
Definitely a dance party type of song.
Yes.
Awesome, man. Okay, so I guess this is it. This is it.
End of the journey.
End of the journey. Where can people follow your journey moving forward?
So I'm Gavin Konop on Instagram and Twitter, and then on YouTube I'm just Gavin J Konop. So you can add the J in there for YouTube. And that's all my social media. So just my name, pretty much.
All right. And then Spider-Man Lotus coming out
August 10th, 2023.
That's it. So be on the lookout. We'll leave links for as much as we can. We touched on a lot of different things, a lot of different handles and projects and whatnot. But thank you so much, Gavin. It's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Sure. Appreciate it.
And yeah, this is just the beginning. I hope that we can also continue. Hopefully we can become pretty good friends. I get some good positive vibes, energy from you. I like to think I'm a pretty, good judge of character. I see your sincerity, and
Thank you.
that's really what I ask of most people. Like, just give me, just show who you are. It's less exhausting.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much, everyone out there that joined us on this special episode of Raspberry Lemonade. Thank you so much for continuing to support the show. To continue supporting the show, all that we ask is that you like, share, comment, subscribe, so we can have more amazing guests such as today. And yeah, just so grateful for this opportunity. So
Thank you. I'm grateful too. Seriously. Thank you.
all right, that's all for today. Have a good one. Make it a great one. That's a wrap.
No, thank you, dude.
This has been a Redbird Studio Productions. Hope you've enjoyed the program.